Hello, good morning. Welcome to Inside Pages on Metro Television. I know this is the time you've been waiting for. This is the platform that discusses issues dispassionately because we have Ghana at heart. We only deal with the facts and the figures. My name is Aldo Moro. It's always a pleasure having you on the show this morning. And Inside Pages will treat this morning two very important subject matters. Now, the first one has to do with the state of the nation. I mean, we can't stop talking about it because the president, in fulfilling Article 67 of the 1992 Constitution, has presented, in his estimation, what he believes is the state of the nation. We also, as citizens, would have to ask ourselves whether what the president has said is actually a true reflection of our own individual state of affairs. And that's exactly the exercise we'll be conducting this morning on Inside Pages. We'll be talking to people with diverse backgrounds. Of course, the MPP NDC will look at it from their own, partisan political lenses, which is okay, which is understandable. But it'll also be the middleman who will say this is what he also thinks. And I want to believe that the middleman, his views will largely reflect your views as somebody who is not partisan yourself. And so that's how it's going to go. But the second topic we'll be dealing with, which is a little later in the day, is that when I say we as a Metro TV Inside Pages, we can state categorically and authoritatively that the former president, John Dramani Mahama, who is the flag bearer of the NDC, prefers Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman to be his running mate for the 2024 elections. That we can state as a matter of fact, and you can quote us that the former president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, prefers to go into the 2024 elections with Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. He hasn't told us why, but you and I can surmise, we can guess, we can fathom why he wants to go with that. That's entirely up to you. But we also have the right to question and interrogate whether that is the best choice for the former president going into the 2024 election. I'm sure that opinions may, and I'm using may, be diverse. Opinions may differ, but that's fine. That's the essence and the beauty of the democratic dispensations that you and I have adopted, and we're very happy to have. So those are the two topics that we'll be dealing with on Inside Pages this morning. My name, once again, is Aldo Moro. When I come back, I will be introducing my resource persons, and I'll also be telling you how you can join us via WhatsApp, and I'll share the number with you when I'm back.
The State of the Nation address in Parliament provides the President with a platform to deliver updates on various sectors of the economy, including governance, security, and education. The President began by addressing security concerns, emphasizing the need to bolster the country's security forces, particularly in light of recent events such as the coup d'etat in the sub-region.
There is indeed, Mr. Speaker, a state of palpable anxiety and tension in every corner of West Africa, raising the specter of regional instability, which we thought had been banished. Unconstitutional changes in government in parts of Africa, especially in West Africa, through a series of coups d'etats and military interventions in governance, testified to an unfortunate democratic regression. The Speaker, the peace and security we have in our country has not happened by chance. It has taken deliberate policy and planning on the part of government and a lot of hard work and dedication on the part of our security services to keep our country safe and secure.
The President, acknowledging Ghana's economic challenges, said he is ultimately responsible for all the happenings in his government.
The executive power of the state is vested in the President of the Republic. He or she is the executive. There's no ambiguity about where the buck stops when it comes to responsibility for what happens in the government. It stops with the President. He or she has ultimate responsibility. It would be an unwise president that would pretend to have all the answers and refuse the advice of his officials. But the fact remains that the president holds the executive power.
He outlined positive economic indicators, attributing them to Ghana's engagement with the IMF and the digitization initiatives led by the vice president.
It is important to underline that the recent change in the leadership of the finance ministry will not affect government's determined commitment to implementing the terms agreed with the IMF to ensure that we restore the economy to healthy growth as soon as possible. Generally, the macroeconomic indicators are once again all pointing in the right direction. I should point out that in all our discussions with the fund, a paramount consideration has been to ensure that the poor and vulnerable.
President Akufo-Addo pledged to ensure peaceful and transparent elections in 2024, urging all political parties to collaborate with the Electoral Commission for a successful outcome.
Democracies are founded on elections, and the holding of free and credible elections ensure that people have confidence in the government that emerges at the end of the process. And we who are members of political parties owe it to ourselves, the institutions we claim to belong to, and above all, we owe it to Ghana and the people of Ghana to make politics and elections the serious and joyful phenomenon they should be.
Minority Leader Akufo-Addo, however, contested the president's claimed achievement.
The Hansard will record me today. Mr. Speaker, the unemployment situation in our country is at a critical point. Yet, we did not hear a word from our president on this matter. Mr. Speaker, out of 33 million population, only 11.3 million are employed. Speaker, 30% of our youth are jobless.
All right, so those are excerpts of what happened in Parliament when the president delivered his State of the Nation address. And the president ends his speech by this quote. He says, "Mr. Speaker, we stumbled, but we are rising again. We were bruised, but we're healing. We have recovered our footing. We have dusted ourselves off, and now we face tomorrow with confidence. Every day we pray and hope that adversity may spare our families, our communities, and our dear nation. But should we be confronted by misfortune, we must face it like people with a proud history who fight and do not flee. Yenim ko, yenim, I think yenim is what yenim ejane. I think so. I think that's what. Yenim jane, yes. And that is the Ghanaian spirit. That is our armor and our shield. This is our ethos. Let us believe in Ghana. I believe in Ghana. I thank you for your attention." Now, this quote, as I'm delivering it, has been subject to all kinds of interpretation. Some say that the president is admitting palpably that he's made some mistakes, and we should blame him solely for those mistakes, but would interrogate that. Let me say that I have the Honorable George Ricketts Kweku Hagan, who is the Member of Parliament for the Cape Coast South constituency, a member of the Finance Committee in Parliament and Economic Committee in Parliament. He's here with us this morning to join us have this conversation. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you so very much. It's always a pleasure having you. Happy New Year. I think this is the first time you're coming here this year, 2024. Happy New Year. All right. Please, your microphone is actually off. If you can switch it on. Yes. So okay. We'll start all over again. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good to have you here.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Happy New Year to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, I want to say that I have Mr. Joe Jackson. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance. He's also joined us. Good morning, sir. It's good to have you.
Good morning.
I'm not going to say Happy New Year because you've been here
I've been here
several
already,
times.
so.
Yeah, so.
But it's exciting to be here one day and another day.
No, lovely, lovely. And I think I want to use this opportunity to wish your wife a happy 60th birthday. She turned 60 today.
Thank you. Yes, she said she turned 60 on the 29th of February.
Oh, 29th
She's
of February. A leap year born.
Yes.
Interesting. How does she celebrate it? Because it comes once every 4 years.
Yeah, so she's celebrating it.
So if it's not 29, what happens? She does it on 28? Or she does?
She's 15 years old.
Oh, that's interesting. I've always wondered. Anyway, so as you can tell, the two of them would prefer to stand and, submit on the issues. Let me also say that the Honourable Member of Parliament for the Asante Akim North, the Honourable Andy Apiakubi, will be joining us. He tells us that he's on his way. He'll be joining us shortly. Of course, he is from the New Patriotic Party stock. So I'll start with, let me start with the politicians. Honorable Rickett Hagan. So the president says, I should tell you, and I'm going to repeat this again, and find out from you what's your interpretation of what the president has said. Mr. Speaker, we stumbled, but we are rising again. We were bruised, but we're healing. We have recovered our footing. We have dusted ourselves off, and now we face tomorrow with confidence. Every day we pray, we hope that adversity may spare our families, our communities, and our dear nation. But should we be confronted by misfortune, we must face it like people with a proud history who fight and do not flee. That is the Ghanaian spirit. That is our armor and our shield, and that's our ethos. Let's believe in Ghana. I believe in Ghana, and thanks for your attention. You have been very critical of the president for not accepting, blame for the current woes that the people of this country are going through or are faced with. Would you say this answers that question you've always asked? Wouldn't you accept blame? Wouldn't you accept blame? Does that answer that question?
Thank you very much. And first of all, Happy New Year to my brother Joe Jackson. And happy birthday to your lovely wife.
Oh, definitely.
Well, it's the president's constitutional mandate to come to the House on Article 67 to give us the State of the Nation address to the whole nation, not only just to Parliament.
Right.
And what I was expecting, I didn't get it.
Okay.
I mean, he's obviously on his way out. He does this every year.
Right.
And he's obviously, I think he's got one more to do. And
this is his penultimate.
Yeah,
actually.
penultimate.
Yeah.
And he's out. But he's taken us to an IMF program.
Okay.
And a lot has happened since. I was not expecting him to come and talk economics.
Right.
But to basically give us a direction on where we are going.
Okay.
In terms of where we've been and where we are coming from, and on an IMF program, what opportunities does the IMF program present to us in terms of space, fiscal space, and what we're going to do with that space.
That was your expectation.
And that was my expectation. And to talk about the serious things crippling this country, which is basically the economics. As I said, I was not expecting him to give an economic lecture.
Okay.
But, to give us a sort of a high-level view of what the economic situation is, the debt situation, and where we're going. Its words were good, but then that is the kind of words you will expect from a Bruce general, before he falls on his sword.
Right.
So, it's indeed a last message, though we said it's the penultimate. But
so
he seized the opportunity.
Okay.
As I said, he didn't say much of economics, but he seized the opportunity to highlight certain macro indicators to say that obviously his government, and I say his government, he and Dr. Mahmoud Bahoumier's government has actually done better than any government in the history the country.
Right.
And that their performance as it stands is better than that of the NDC, which is something they've been doing for the last 8 years. And currently, when I look at the figures that he was mentioning, I was wondering whether those were the figures he was comparing to the 2016 figures of the NDC,
Right.
or, sometimes they talk about they look good in 2019 before the COVID came.
Right.
But at some stage, he was also comparing his own numbers to the previous ones.
True.
The mess they've created and then where they are currently, which is still bad, to suggest that they have turned the corner. But things are extremely difficult in this country. Cost of living is through the roof. The hardships people are facing are real. So if you are going to give such a message and miss the opportunity to tell Ghanaians, apologize, and to tell Ghanaians basically where you are taking us in your last year, that will probably help than to come and sort of put more injury, in their wound.
Right.
And I think that is basically what, for me, he did. I mean, when I look at, as I said, if we're looking at the growth, obviously you've told us you are 2.8. It's 3/4, of course. We still have a quarter to go. But that's an, indication of where we are likely to go, because we predicted around 4%. Now, if you want to compare your 2.8 to where NDC basically finished, that is more than what you did. You have quoted numbers previously that looked better, but currently where you are, it's not better than that. If you look at inflation figures, as a result of, in the inflation figure is quite complicated. Obviously, COVID and Russia-Ukraine war notwithstanding, the government itself has performed badly domestically in terms of its management of the economy and its decisions. Some of the inflation decisions taken, which were more of a supply-side inflation, was basically taken by the central bank, looking at it as if it's a demand-side inflation. Everything to do with the Ukraine war and most of the things to do with the COVID that disrupted, supply and all that. And the inflation they caused was a supply-side inflation.
Right.
But the central bank was pumping money, to try and address the problem as if it was a demand side. And this money was coming onto the fiscal side and being misused. We look at the unemployment situation, we are now at 14.7% or something. If you want to compare that to where we left off for you to come in, it was around 8%. And currently, 1.8 million people are not working. In fact, 4.5 million have taken themselves off. And you heard from the Honorable Akufo-Addo say, how many people are, currently working. So it basically tells you that either he didn't know what he was talking about, because obviously these numbers are fed to him, or he knows what he's talking about.
But interestingly, he didn't even mention the issue of unemployment at all in his speech.
Well,
it didn't feature at all.
It has this again. Dr. Baumia has done this earlier on before him. The finance minister,
right, that's true.
Had done that.
Right.
And then again, you look at the situation of interest rate. So basically, I'm giving you these figures to support what he was trying to say, that government, of course, he did not mention certain things at all, corruption and all those things.
Yeah.
But to tell you that the points he was making, or his message, basically wasn't factual, because the numbers tell the different story. If you look at the interest rate situation, the lending rate, Joe is here, he's the one who's a banker. The figure is hovering around 35%. When we were leaving office, we were around 25. Now, what I don't understand even, and maybe Joe will help me with that, is that our inflation got to around 54%. And it's now come down to 23.5.
Yeah.
food inflation is still high. The question is, why is it that in interest rate doesn't seem to be responding? Because if you've come from a dizzy height of 54 to 23.5, you would expect. I know there are issues of, impairment. There may be issues of risk and other things. Obviously, they have been bent very badly, in this whole debt exchange program. So I want to know whether that is the case, or the inflation numbers we are looking at actually, because there is a relationship between inflation and interest rate. And one would expect that if inflation is responding this way, coming down, though it's going to be turning around and going up again, obviously because of the challenges that we are having with the exchange rate now, the free fall we are having, and the prices of fuel and other things, which carry its own inflation and will feed into the inflation figure. Now, you look at the debt situation, and it's not getting any better. The debt levels are now, or the debt stock, is around $600 billion. Again, what we left them was around 120, some will say 122. But it looks as if they have added about 500 billion to the debt stock. And you don't know exactly what they've used the money for. I mean, the 120 they are talking about, wherever we took it, whether it's from, Akufo left us some fantastic figure or whatever, all the things, and we could go through them, that John Mahama has done with this money can easily be seen. Now, you ask yourself, you had 120 billion, and we've done all the things that we did with it, including fixing Dumso and all that. What have you used a quantum sum of 500 billion for? Now, you look at the revenue that these guys have collected over the years, from 2017 to 2023, because we haven't passed 20, they have collected over 505 billion. That's over 500 billion. This is in revenue. And the numbers are here that I can, if the time permits, I can give you a breakdown on what revenue they got each year. So if you add the revenue which they got, together with the money that they borrowed, which is obviously to fix the deficit and all that, because there's a gap, they need to fund another project. This government has received in the last 7 years over 1 trillion Ghana cedis.
But they have also said that their government is the only government that has been pursuing and prosecuting one of the most, or some of the most ambitious policies and programs ever seen in this country. So they talk about free SHS, they talk about one village, one dam, they talk about one district, one factory. I can give you and I know the tall list of things that the government has done. Secondly, the banking sector cleanup.
Yeah.
It cost them quite a bit, about 24 billion or so Ghana cedis to clean up the banking sector issue. And that's number 3. They're talking about excess capacity, which they've been paying huge sums of money to pay, except that recently they've been able to renegotiate some of those power purchase agreements, and so things are a bit better. So they tell you that these 3 line items alone has consumed a chunk of the monies that they have raised, either through domestic, either domestically or borrowing from
the argument
from the capital markets
that they are making doesn't actually hold water. Because first of all, you talk about excess capacity. Now, whether we are in Dumso or we are shed loading or whatever, you don't have an idea what's going on. Then, you talk about all the other things. The
banking sector clean.
Yes. I mean, that was an exercise. I mean, maybe Joe will differ from or probably even agree with me.
Your argument is a policy choice.
It's a policy choice.
They decided to go that route.
And to collapse the bank was a wrong choice. Most of these banks would have been alive today if they had done what we were proposing or what they were supposed to do. Instead of going ahead and collapsing about 347 or so banks and 9 banks and microfinances. And yes, some of the microfinances were dead anyway.
Right.
But having spent that money, wasteful expenditure, corruption, and so many other things is what, if you want to really account for this money of $1 trillion cedis actually. Now, the other thing you look at is we have stopped servicing our debt. We are not paying our debt. Yet, we are saying that, things are looking up. We've done a domestic debt exchange, which is basically been symbolically done. We may have to revisit that. People have lost their lives, lost their monies. They're giving a haircut today. Tomorrow, they are not giving haircut to some principal. Tomorrow, it's only on interest. Bondholders, pension bondholders are in it. Tomorrow, they are not. The flip-flopping, the independent bondholders are in it. Tomorrow, they are not.
Okay.
So even the incompetent within which this thing was executed itself was bad. If you look at and I may have to end and then maybe come back on.
Yes, because I'd like to acknowledge. The presence of the Honorable Andy Apiakubi, who is the Member of Parliament for the Asante Akim North. He's made time to join us this morning. We're grateful, sir. Thank you. Good morning.
I will end on this point and hope to get opportunity to address.
To come back. Yes, sure,
yeah. The other thing basically is that we still have the external, debt exchange hanging.
True.
And the question is, why is it hanging? Because we are not doing well in that negotiation. I mean, we told that we want the externals, especially the commercial creditors, to get a haircut on interest and on principal. And they are saying, now look, you did not give haircut to your people, according to you, on principle, because you said the haircut was on interest. Why would you want us to sacrifice more than your own people?
Right.
That we should do all this. So that negotiation is probably going to hang for a long time. And then, we're expecting some money from it if the OCC assurance and other things, everything goes well.
Right.
We stand to gain some money from it.
All right.
Whether that money will come or not, it's another issue. We've already taken 1.2 billion of the IMF money.
Yeah.
By the time they leave office, about 2/3 of the IMF money will be gone.
All right.
And a lot of the problems will still be hanging.
So
it cannot be a case where you say that you've been the best president or the best government in history.
Okay.
You are nowhere near that.
So
neither would you do well by saying that your performance as it stands now is better than what the NDC left.
So the point you're making here, and if I get it correctly, is that what the president presented was actually not the true state of the nation, and that the president is living in some kind of a bubble.
Well, yes. I mean, you wouldn't even know. Sometimes when he's talking, you wouldn't know which country you yourself you are in. Whether it is the Ghana that you are living in,
or it's a different Ghana,
where you feel things in your own pocket,
or it's a different Ghana. 0249 155 0249 155 646. We're reviewing, we're dissecting, we're interrogating, we're assessing the speech that the president made when he was addressing the country on delivering the State of the Nation address, which is his penultimate, because before the dissolution of Parliament, he will deliver another one. And hopefully by that time, we would have had elections, so we know who is now the new the president in waiting, and so on and so forth. And of course, we heard the president say, as far as he's concerned, he knows that the current or the sitting vice president, the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, will win. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, that decision or choice is entirely yours to make. 0249 155 646 0249 155 646. The WhatsApp line will be displayed on the screens for those of you who would want to join the conversation. We'll be more than happy to hear your thoughts or your viewpoint or where you stand as far as the issues we've raised are concerned. It's 0249 155 646. And so we'll be expecting you to, share your thoughts or speak your mind as far as the topics we're tackling are concerned. So, Honorable, as you heard your colleague, a member of parliament, say, well, it looks like the president is living in his own country, looks like he's living in a bubble. In fact, I've heard some other NDC communicators say, rather than the president fulfilling Article 67 of the 1992 Constitution, actually he's flouted it, because what he came to present was not the state of the nation. He came to present something else. And so perhaps somebody would have to take him over. But I think that's just on the lighter side. But where do you stand on this? I mean, you have read the script. I'm sure you listened to the president. You watched him. Do you agree with those who say that there's nothing to do with Ghana?
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother, and very good morning to my senior, Dr. Jackson, and my senior colleague also from Parliament. It's interesting that when we have opportunity to interrogate the speech of a president,
Right.
we still want to import some propaganda information into the interrogation opportunity given to us. And, sometimes I'm not attracted to that. Let's
Right.
focus on the presentation by the president.
Right.
The comparisons with various regimes, I don't think that's necessary.
Right.
But for the public, yes, but not for discussants of the presentation. And I will start by first and foremost congratulating the president for reason of acknowledging the presence in the House of past leaders. And indeed, in particular, reference to President Mahama, and also saying that his welcome is appreciated. In fact, I very much congratulate him on that, and also mentioning most of the statesmen who were there. So my special commendation on that approach.
Right.
For once, the president started his presentation on
Matters of security.
Matters of security.
Yeah, it dealt extensively with that. Why do you think he did that?
And that is very necessary in this present.
Because someone said normally, he starts with the economy.
With the economy. But for now, he started with security.
Yeah.
And internal and external.
External.
And indeed, dwelt very extensively
On
also on the sub-regional security.
Yeah.
And interface the African security into the world.
True.
And of particular reference, the Boko conflict. You see, we take things for granted as a country. And sometimes, even in our politicking, we forget that we need a solid, secure state to be able to do whatever is necessary as citizens of a country, as members of economic community and the like. So we don't take security seriously.
Right.
But I appreciate the discussion on security. You see, Ghana is an oasis of security and peace within this sub-region. And let us not forget, things are happening just within our neighboring countries. And they have the possibility of also infecting, our geopolitics with the same situations.
It's a spillover effect.
So if we are not getting that, we must be very thankful to God and, of course, the government for having sustained the level of security and stability that we have enjoyed so far. We cannot take that for granted. And again, for us as politicians, let us be careful that we will not be the conduit of importation of insecurity, instability into our country. It's very necessary. So the utterances that we make, we must be guided so that we are not seen as encouraging insurgency, encouraging insecurity into our country, because even if you are a president, if there is turmoil in the country, you will not be spared. So it is very necessary for all of us to ensure that we support whatever system that is in place to ensure that we sleep soundly, we walk freely on our streets, and we do our businesses within very secure environment.
I'm happy you brought this matter, because one of the things that I noticed was palpably missing, even in the post State of the Nation address delivery, was the talk about security. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's discussing it. Everybody's talking about the economy.
So you have the platform now, and we are talking about it.
You're discussing security.
I'm sure that my senior has dealt extensively with the economy.
And in fact, I think the president himself acknowledges that. He said, look, it may sound pedestrian.
Yes.
For us to be talking about security now, but these are the reasons why I think that it's important for us to talk about it. So yes, I get where you're coming from.
And so, particularly this year, being an election year, we must be careful.
Yeah.
That we don't open our gates because we have elections.
Right.
We make sure that we provide the same or even an improved environment in terms of security and stability as we even head towards elections. And most of the time, the guilty ones are the politicians. We will be careless in our advocacy in the hope that we are winning votes. We will not mind what we say. We have to be careful. And we have seen it before, so let us learn from history. And other people are also reaping the benefits or otherwise of insecurity.
Right.
But again, let me dwell a little bit on it. President talks about the situation in West Africa, the takeovers, military takeovers and the like, and the democratic and non-democratic, processes being done back upon. A democratic process will also have to ensure a democratic governance. When the process is democratic and the governance system is not democratic,
I totally agree.
There is the possibility of unconventional means of causing change.
I agree with
we
you.
must all be careful
I
and
agree
be,
with you.
Again, in the sub-region, particularly referencing Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, you see the problem in Niger is not only governance. It's about an institutional default that has persisted over time beyond independence. You cannot have a state where your resources are being managed by somebody else, and you think that that is correct. You cannot have a state where you presumably sign independence agreement that says that I'm gone, but I still own your country. In terms of resources, in terms of even your governance, even balancing your budget. You have, come on. And politicians, so democratically elected, will continue to support such a scheme. So personally, I think that this is something that ought to have been done at independence that they didn't do.
Right.
They have come back to correct it. I don't support military insurgency, but for reason that Africa must go the full length of independence. And this is what they are trying to do. In fact, we politicians, it's easy for colonial masters to subject us to such unconventional contracts, unconscionable ones. And we think that because we are in contract, we have to follow suit, the terms of the contract. Sometimes unconscionable contracts ought to be abrogated.
Right.
And this is exactly what they're doing to justify the takeovers, because 60 years down the line, they are not addressing those pertinent issues. So I'm not trying to justify the coup d'etat, but I'm saying that governance system must also respond to democratic expectations.
So talking about the governance system, I'm happy you brought this matter up. Now, talking about governance system, and you're saying that fairness, justice, and honesty is a sine qua non to the process. But here's the thing.
The process is not adequate.
I understand.
If the governance system will not reconcile with the process.
Absolutely. So that for me, that's a fantastic point. But here's the thing. We also live in a country where there are serious perceptions about state institutions. And I'm going to raise this matter because it's not enough for us to say we want peace if we're not doing the things, as you say, the things that would ensure that we have peace. So we live in a country where there are perception issues about the neutrality of the Electoral Commission, for instance. And that's why, for instance, I heard the president say that the Electoral Commission must do everything possible to make sure that we have a fair and transparent elections, and must also listen to dissenting views and dissenting opinions. He talked about that. In fact, just right after the issues about security. You also have a situation about the perception about the bias or otherwise of the judiciary. You have perception issues about the bias or otherwise of our security agencies. Exactly. So don't you think that whilst we're talking about security, of course, in buttressing the point you're making, we must also make sure that we lessen or we dilute that perception that the citizenry have about these key state actors.
We must remove,
the judiciary,
not only dilute.
We must even remove it. Well, I'm not sure if we can totally, because you see, the reason why I'm saying that the removal will be a bit difficult, because once you appoint somebody, that in itself, ab initio, becomes a problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because then it becomes who pays the person who pays the piper will call the tune.
And that goes to
totally
the Constitution.
I'm not sure. I understand. I take the point I'm making. So then we'll come. See, so good. So the other leg of the conversation will then come back to what we do with the Constitution, and then talk about amending the Constitution, as the former president has said severally. Now I heard the flag bearer also saying that we need to do something about the Constitution. So I'm saying that we cannot talk about peace and security without looking at some of these factors. That's all I'm trying to say.
I'm sure if we had a platform to discuss that as a subject,
I agree with you. It's a whole subject that we can look at.
Because when I touch on security,
I mean, extending an invitation to you for you to come back some other time for us to look at this as because we're heading to the elections. We're going to be looking at the Electoral Commission. We're looking at the IGP and so on and so on and so forth. So we'll look at it.
So if we are not careful, that takes us out of the.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
But we need another conversation.
I agree with you. So what else do you want to highlight?
But what I need to talk about in
Apart from
terms of
security.
security and the stability of the state
Okay.
and the Boko conflict in
Yes.
particular is the matters of chieftaincy.
Right.
I think the National House of Chiefs must sit up and make sure that we address chieftaincy issues carefully so that it does not invite insurgencies through chieftaincy. And the Boko thing is all chieftaincy. And we have spent a lot of money trying to manage crisis coming from the civil service institution.
Okay.
So I expect that National House of Chiefs sit up
All right.
and make sure that, you see, there must be a succession plan.
Yeah.
And that every stool must have a plan that says that if Mr. A is not there, the next person. Sometimes we have 3 gates or 4 gates all ascending to the same stool. It is only fair that if Apiakubi has his time, Rickett must have his time next time, and my senior have his time next time. And it's documented, and it's uncontestable. In all cases, the vacuum that is created in chieftaincy cause most of these speculations and the agitations.
All right.
And then it ends up with security issues.
Okay.
So
Now,
I'm picking that one only because of...
That's fine. So that we can, when we come back, you may want to touch on some other
and
theme.
look at that.
Big Joe, I mean, the Honorable...
And again, let me end with
sure.
sovereignty versus security.
Sure.
Some of the things happening in West Africa, and these are created by politicians in West Africa. You have a mandate of 4 years. After the 4 years, you find a way to re-engineer the mandate you want to continue your EOC. And leaders of West Africa will look on and expect this person to gain the extended years and come back and all kinds of things. When somebody says no, and I will not agree, I will make sure that you end your mandate, then people say that they are trying to cause insurgency in West Africa.
Right.
So sovereignty must also be managed, considering that security is important to also solidify sovereignty.
Okay.
So the leaders of West Africa, you must be peers within that enclave and make sure that you can also manage your peers.
Yeah. And that's why the peer review mechanism is actually an instrumental platform.
Once I've only restricted myself to security
that's
for
fine.
now,
that's fine.
I'm sure
you decided to
I'll
avoid
have the next opportunity.
Yes, you decided to avoid.
We don't need this come back here. We have plenty of time
to talk about the economy.
And more importantly, sometimes even invite us to talk about the campaign, the elections, the people behind us, and all that.
And all of that.
But to end it all, I want to congratulate also the IGP.
Okay.
Because President mentioned what he has done to this police service. Indeed, the image he has created, the presence he's created in the economy and generally in the country, and the beautification that President referred to is commendable.
Okay.
For nothing at all, we must learn from that.
Okay, all right. That's the Honourable Andy Apiakubi, who's the Member of Parliament for the Asante Akim North. The pronunciation of that is it Asante Achim or Asante Akim?
No, it's Asante Achim.
Oh.
It is the brothalization that brings
Make it Akim.
No, we don't have anything like Akim.
Akim.
We have
it's
Achim.
Asante Achim North.
But because the white men were finding it difficult to pronounce Achim, they decided to coin a name for us, but we rejected it in the name of Christ.
Right, it's phonetics. Anyway, Honourable, so, I mean, Honourable's looked at the matters bordering on the economy, he's looked at security. What do you want to look at?
Listen, I listened to the speech. I listened to significant parts of the speech. And one word that kept running through my head was dabble. You know, I literally wanted to go like this. Dabble. This was a lame duck speech.
A lame duck speech?
Yes. You know what lame duck is?
Yes, I know.
Yes. This was a lame duck speech by a lame duck president who had already checked out.
Explain.
Okay. I will explain by what he left out. Not what he talked about.
Okay.
What he left out. Listen, this is today's Ghana. People are facing tough circumstances.
True.
When you want to come and talk to me, sitting where I sit, looking at how much I pay my staff, which can barely take them, right? looking at, listen, before we even start talking, a year and a half ago, if I paid a member of my staff 6,000 cedis, he was earning $1,000. Today, he's earning $500.
True.
That's a big issue. So forgive me if I say the issues were not addressed. It's a big issue when today we are down on our knees. I had visitors from Nigeria in my office on Thursday and Friday. And you know what the guy said to me? He said, can you imagine, the worst thing I did was to buy Ghana bonds. They are toxic. We've been brought to our knees, right? Because we have borrowed too much. That's where we are today. We are not even paying our debts as a country. And yet, in our State of the Nation address, where was the issue about borrowing? Where was the issue about where we are going? Right? If you ask me, corruption is a bigger issue than even, corruption is killing the economy faster than mismanagement.
Right.
What was the issue on corruption? We've had back
But
and forth.
isn't the president tired of talking about corruption?
No, you can't be. You're talking about me. You're talking about the things that affect me. I'm a citizen of this country. I'm not in parliament, but my representatives are there. Talk about the state of the economy or the state of the country as it's. Listen, is security important? Security is important, right? Anybody who thinks security is not important and should be taken for granted is living in a false paradise. I do agree that we must have an even a whole session to address security.
Yeah.
But listen, security alone is not the issue when I'm hungry. Look at unemployment. How many times was it mentioned? When you're talking about the people who are listening, their brothers, their sisters, their nephews, their nieces, their children don't have jobs? No. So when you hear me saying it's a lame duck address by a lame duck president who has already checked out, that's what I mean. We sit in a country where the issues of taxes that are burdening regular citizens day in, day out. What was it addressed? Were we even told why we need those taxes and why they're so critical? I mean, forgive me. I appreciate what they've done in security. I appreciate what they've done in tourism. We all admit the year of return has been fantastic, right? But let's take a Greek. Each day, each one of us in this country should go down on their knees and pray that the rains come on time and they come well. Otherwise, we will go back to 81. We should be down on our knees praying.
Because we're not sitting pretty.
We're not sitting pretty. And if the abnormal weather patterns we've seen in the last 3-4 months continue, we are in trouble.
Right.
If the extreme weather patterns we've seen in other parts of the world happen to hit us, we are in trouble.
In trouble.
So don't tell me about the success of planting for food and jobs. Don't tell me about the success of 1D1F in creating jobs when our own statistical service comes out with figures that stare in the face of every government statistic we are receiving and call it the untruth. I'm being kind. So forgive me. It's for me. And I really, when I listen to this, I got emotional.
Right.
But listen, this is a difficult time of the country. This is a time when we are on our knees. Don't check out, Nana. Don't check out His Excellency. Don't check out. If you say, listen, he says, "Yenim ko, yenim Daniel, aye, fight for us."
Yeah.
Don't check out. Fight for us at this time. This is the time when you can do things without looking over your shoulder because you're on your way out. You should fight for us.
But he's reshuffled his ministers. He's still going around commissioning projects.
Please replay what I said about that reshuffle. Yeah. But let's move on. I don't want to talk about that reshuffle. Let's focus on if you fight for me. Fight for me. Show me that things are changing. Right? Look at the allegations over sports and how much we are spending for in this day. Is that what we want to do? In this day, we're still talking about one village, one dam. Show me 10 dams in the country that have been built in the last 8 years that are functioning, that are not just holes in the ground that dry up in the dry season when we most need that dam. Show me 10. I'm not asking for 256 districts. I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 dams that are working. You see, have we faced tough times? Yes, COVID is a generational challenge.
Yeah.
As for Ukraine, I won't talk about Ukraine. I refuse to talk about Ukraine. I will talk about COVID. COVID was a generational challenge.
Right.
We agree. Right? Ukraine, no. You can't suffer more than the Ukrainians are suffering.
Right.
So let's forget it. You've seen statistics. You're talking about interest rates. You've seen statistics that our interest rates, our inflation, everything are higher than any of our neighboring countries. Guys, let's talk about, listen, there are real issues to be faced. I like security. I want to feel safe in my house. I want to feel safe in my, and I want to believe that with all the going on around us, we are safe. Thank you. Education. Are we living in some hole where we don't know what is happening with our education, that we don't know that it is almost costing, right, more to send your child to school now than it's ever done, even under so-called free SHS? The one thing I was glad of is that there should be, he said there was going to be a review. Thank you, sir.
11th hour.
At the 11th hour. But why is the review not now? That's when I say fight for me. When I say fight for me now. Let the review be for now because you are not afraid of anything anymore. Your foot soldiers can't hold you to ransom. Fight for me now.
He has a critical elections ahead of him.
Critical election.
The party,
listen,
the
best
party
thing
in
for
government,
that election and the best thing for that candidate
Mr. Joe
is
Jackson,
to see that we as a party are fighting to the last. Listen, if I use a soccer analogy, right? The best teams are known to fight till the end.
Endurance.
When we talk about, if you're a Man U fan, you talk about squeaky bomb time or Fergie time. When it's injury time, and now luckily the injury time has been extended to almost 7-9 minutes. So that is when you show that you're a good team. Not in the first 5 minutes, not in the first 10 minutes. Sorry, but I really, listen, this, I can't help but repeat again, was a lame duck address by a lame duck president who has checked out. Who, when he says it's at odds with the quote you gave, he's not fighting for me. No, he's checked out. Sorry.
Wow, just in case you just joined us, this is Inside Pages on Metro Television. I'm here with Mr. Joe Jackson, as Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance, who believes that the president is not fighting for Ghanaians. The president has checked out, and he said he's not happy about it. Of course, people are expressing their opinions here, so you should be able to grant them that. It's 0249-155-646, as you can see on the screens. So I have this one here from Mark Anthony, who says, good morning, and good morning, sir. Thank you very much for a great job you're doing for Mother Ghana. My name is Mark Anthony, watching from the United Kingdom. Please ask your panelists, why didn't the president last SONA mention 1, unemployment, 2, galamsey, 3, corruption? Was there a particular reason? The president said Age's office saved Ghana about $800 billion. Are you kidding me? If so, why did we go to the IMF? Thank you very much. That's That's from this texter. And this one says, good morning, sir. Thank you very much for this wonderful program. It's my first time tuning in. I like the submission of the man called Andy. I think his sense of maturity in addressing the issues about security has really won me over to this show. Tell him I said a big thank you. That's come from Mamiya in East Legon. All right. This one here from Alhaji Sani, who says, good morning, Mr. Moro. I want to say that the economy did not feature prominently in the president's speech. I am a bit disappointed, but please tell Mr. Rickett Hagan that I like his submission. He did a wonderful job. I'm not NDC, but I like what he said. I think he said, I like what he said. Okay, and that's coming from Alhaji Sani. The other messages are attacking some of our resource persons. You see, that's the thing. When people come here and they express their opinions, the last thing you want to do is to attack them. You can critique what they're saying. You can disagree. It's fine. It's beautiful. In fact, that's the path we have chosen. That's the democratic path we've chosen. But attacking people and insulting them and so on and so forth, it's something that I will not countenance. I will not tolerate that. So I will not even read your message at all.
It doesn't change my perception.
Absolutely. No, it doesn't.
When you insult, I am still me.
So you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time.
It's an opinion.
So Honorable says, look,
you can challenge that with a superior opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
But the attack on my person, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't touch my shit.
Save yourself the airtime and the data. Yeah, it does. You know, it's unfortunate, but please don't do this. It's not right. Anyway, so those messages, I will not read about 10 of them. I will not read those messages. Even the language, it's quite harsh. It's not the kind of thing that we want to welcome here on the Inside Pages. So I'll get my resource persons to give us their final take. Some I'm sure will be reactions or responses, and some will be, some other issues that they've been wanting to raise. And then at 9:20, which is 20 minutes away, 20 minutes from now, we'll look at the issue of our running mate. Professor Jane, we can state authoritatively that the former president, John Dramani Mahama, prefers to go with Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman as his running mate. We're told that on the 7th of March, the president will be announcing, not the president, but the party will be announcing the president's choice of a running mate. I'm told this will happen after. The former president. Sorry about that. The former president. Yes. But if you know what that's debate, some say former president, like we say to go for president. Anyway, but the former president, for the purpose of this, it's extremely important. But what we're told is that the former president would have to first of all meet the national, the Council of Elders to justify his choice or his decision, and then that will be forwarded to the National Executive Council. To also look at it, which includes regional chairmen and so on and so forth. And once they endorse it, then it means that the party is fine and they're good to go. So we'll see how it goes. But even before that, Musa Danko of the Global Info Analytics has done some beautiful job. In fact, ahead of this big decision, which on the 7th of March, he's been tracking what impact the Professor Jane ticket made in 2020 and what people said when the announcement was made. Whether they were going to vote for the NDC based on that choice or there were other factors. He will come and share that with us, and that would inform what is likely to happen, whether or not she's chosen as the running mate. But what we do know, and we can say it definitively and authoritatively, is that the former president would prefer. His choice is the former education minister and also the vice chancellor of the Cape Coast University, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. So I'll get my guest to express their thoughts on that as well before they leave. So I'll come back to you. So, Honorable, you heard what he said. He says, look, instead of talking economy, let's talk security.
No. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said he had discussed the economic
He wants to talk about security.
I wanted to add
security part. Okay, that's fine. And then he looked at general issues.
Talk about general issues and infrastructure.
Which is fine.
So
which is fine.
It's good.
Which is fine.
Complementary.
So, you have anything you want to say, or you have other things? Nation address. Yes. Your microphone is off. Sorry. If you can, yes, get it closer to you so we can hear you.
The President's State of the Nation address is supposed to address, a number of things. The economy, security, and what have you.
Okay.
So it's okay where you want to start your discussion from.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I chose to start with the economics or the economy because I thought that is the most serious threat
Without an economy, we don't have security.
for this country.
Okay.
Now, first and foremost, peace is important. For me, talking about the West African issue was not really something that somebody who is facing an economic hardship here at the moment will be looking at.
Okay.
But then let me tell you how I think it flows.
Okay.
We know what is going on in the sub-region, security-wise, the military takeovers and all that. And Honorable said something which I do agree with, to do with basically the governance system that we have. The governance system involves institution, it involves mismanagement or the management of the economy, and then it involves so many other things. Now, the two biggest issues, which I consider to be a security threat in this country, is unemployment, especially the youth unemployment. So this is basically an inherent security threat. It's not people coming from somewhere to do anything to us in this country. But it is what we can do to ourselves if certain issues are not looked at. The other thing is to do with economic threat itself, the hardship, the economic hardship that we are facing at the moment. Look, if you examine things very well, this IMF program that we went on, first of all, the government chose not to go at the time where people were actually, people who know how these things work, were telling the government that, look, you better go now because the road ahead doesn't look very good. Well, we went on a stretcher and then, we are where we are at the moment. But if you really examine it, and this also this connects with security. When I was sitting in a meeting with the IMF when they came to town about to do analysis whether we are actually, our debt is sustainable or not, the things they were saying were quite interesting.
Yeah.
And you have to look in between the lines.
Okay.
Because when the debt sustainability analysis was done, the story was no different from when they came in, that Ghana's debt wasn't sustainable at the time. And they have also made us aware that if your debt is not sustainable, IMF will not touch you. So then, why is it that we did this debt sustainability thing and still end up getting a program? And if you read in between the lines, one of the reasons, and especially from the managing director, if you listen to the managing director of the IMF, was to do with security. That the region at that time did not look very good security-wise.
Yeah.
Ghana has been seen or known to be a beacon of democracy. Now, how do they help Ghana to remain a democracy and not be affected with what is going on in the region? So, the IMF program that was given to us, if I can say, was given to us on a humanitarian ground. That
on the platform of security concerns.
Yes, security concerns.
Humanitarian, you don't give away.
Well,
Because,
well, of course.
because my face is good for you.
People are suffering.
Yeah.
So, on security, as Honorable probably, has chosen the right way. Because they realize that if we are not helped to really make an effort, because they believe that we have done it before and we can probably pull out of this. So let's just give them the 3 billion, guide them, bend back on certain things for us to be able to get on the program. So our government should realize that we didn't get this on merit, but it was given to us on security.
Yeah.
And therefore, we should, if we really care about security, we should be making the effort to make sure that under the IMF program, we are able to get things back on track and get the economy moving in the right direction, get people out of poverty. At the moment, we put another 800 million, according to, the World Bank, and 800,000, sorry.
Yeah.
800,000 into poverty. That's getting to almost 1 million. And then there are issues, as Joe rightly said, that were not addressed. That is why I told you that sitting there listening and many other Ghanaians listening will probably wonder whether it's the economy that they live in that the president was talking about, or he's talking about something else.
Yeah.
Because the issues, the bread and butter issues that people want to see addressed, the numerous taxes that is killing us, are things that people want to hear. Whether something will be done, on that.
Yeah.
The other issue I wanted to talk about, and Joe has hated on that, and I've talked about this many times without counting. And when I started my submission earlier on, I said to you that this government has taken 1 trillion in terms of loans and revenue that they've taken for the last 7 years. Yet there's nothing to show for it. And you said that they said they've used that money for flagship programs. Now, unfortunately, one thing that is lacking, and I think Parliament is beginning to address that, is that, when we sign all these laws, or when we approve all these laws in Parliament, people then turn around and say, if we're really not happy with the loans or the too much of borrowing, why don't we do something about it in Parliament?
Okay.
The reason why we are not able to do much about it is that there is no known institution or a system in this country to look at the economic impact of government policies.
Right.
Look, even the Ministry of Finance, which used to be known as the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, if you go there, little economic planning is done there. It's become a firefighting ministry. I have had the opportunity to be there. And the economics is silent. So whatever we are raising money for, which is the finance side to fund, we don't even know what we are funding. And we don't know what the economic impact of that will be. And in Parliament itself, with all the committees that we have in Parliament, in our old standing orders, we didn't have any committee that actually monitors economic impact of the laws that we sign for the various ministries of the executives to go and do their work. Luckily, the new standing orders has this committee now to do with economic and development, which is like economic and development planning, more or less. Okay. So hopefully, going forward, something will happen.
Okay.
The planting for food and jobs has failed.
Well, he says there's no argument, and I'm happy you brought it. There's no argument that the food self-sufficiency is the basic requirement for national security and the foundation for building a prosperous nation. Last year, government reviewed the Planting for Food and Jobs program, which had been implemented since 2017. Now, based on lessons learned, government developed and launched under the dynamic leadership of the new Minister for Food and Agriculture the second phase of the PFJ. The second phase of the PFJ sets out a 5-year agenda to ensure food sufficiency, self-sufficiency, and resilience. Strategic targets have been set for 11 priority products in the immediate term, September to December 2023, short term, year 2024, medium term, 2025 to 2026, and the long term, 2027 to 2028. The selected products are maize, rice, soybean, sorghum, tomato, pepper, onion, cassava, yam, plantain, and poultry. I'm happy to report that production estimates for these priority products reveals that the planned target for the year have been exceeded for all the products, except poultry. Poultry obviously requires extra attention, and that is exactly what we're doing. We're very intentional of meeting the domestic production targets for poultry this year, 2024, and moving into production levels that will lead to reduction in poultry imports. We envisage a vigorous cooperation between government and the private sector to achieve this. So, are you still going to say it has failed?
And I'll tell you again.
Okay.
That the system or the structure to manage or to basically review the economic impact of whatever policy that we implement is non-existent.
Okay.
It doesn't exist in the ministry implementing that policy. It doesn't exist in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, who in the end will be doling out the money.
Okay.
And until recently, it did not exist in Parliament.
All right.
So when the government comes and talk about we have reviewed this, we have done this, we have done that, who are those doing the reviewing?
Okay.
Was it being done inside the ministry itself? Was it done outside the ministry? Was it done in cabinet? Or where was that done?
Okay.
Do we have the same people doing the same thing?
Okay.
over and over and thinking that they're going to get a new result.
Okay.
There are people with different interests in a lot of the things that they're doing.
Okay.
You take a minister, okay, he went to run for president, obviously, taking almost 600 million every year in addition to his budget, purposely for planting for food and jobs. And I have said this many times, that Ghana is the country that the more we plant, the less we harvest. You realize that planting for food hasn't worked. It has not been reviewed. If it has, not properly done.
Okay.
And then we are going to the phase 2. We have been unsuccessful with phase 1. We have changed the minister, and the minister is thinking, look, this 600 million additional money can continue.
Okay.
Let's create a phase 2.
Okay.
Planting 1D, 1F hasn't worked.
Okay.
We all know that we need to industrialize.
Okay.
We know Ghana needs to become a manufacturing, country.
Okay.
Yet the approach, sometimes it's not only the policy, but the implementation of that policy. In this case, the 1D, 1F hasn't really worked. They tell you 165 companies or something they have created.
Right.
If we have created 165 companies in this country, factories or whatever they are, will this be the situation we have in this country with regards to unemployment?
Okay.
So basically, free education is another one that it's like nobody wants to touch.
Okay.
We know it is enshrined in our constitution that if things are good, education should be progressively free.
Okay.
NDC, President Mahama was already doing some experiment with this in terms of some piloting. Then Akufo-Addo came with Dr. Baumia and said, we'll do it now.
Okay.
Now, we have seen the result. One president, Akufo-Addo, went to, was it BBC or whatever, and he was interviewed. Because no journalist, nobody in this country was bold enough to ask him how this will be funded. He went to BBC, they questioned him. He said when he comes to Ghana, he clearly tells you that they had not planned through it. It was a good policy decision. It was a popular decision. And they wanted to carry it out without costing it properly. And that is what has resulted in our kids eating a mutuo with water soup.
But the Ministry of Education has been going around to check this because they're worried about the report.
We've seen the pictures.
All right.
We've seen the pictures. And in this day and age, you can't hide things for long.
I get it.
It's the school kids who are taking the pictures and sending what they're eating.
Okay. All right.
Joe said that we are spending more money on our children's education than when we had free education.
Honorable, the president says, Mr. Speaker, the president and his appointees are not universally loved. And it will be strange and unproductive if they were. It is probably worthwhile making what I consider to be important observations at this stage on some of the issues in our public discourse. In the lead up to the elections for a new president, under the Constitution, the executive power of the state is vested in the President of the Republic. He or she is the executive. There is no ambiguity about where the buck stops. When it comes to responsibility for what happens in the government, it stops with the president. Right. He or she has ultimate responsibility. It would be unwise or an unwise president that would pretend to have all the answers and refuse the advice of his officials. But the fact also remains that the president holds the executive power. The cabinet, the ministers of state all act in an advisory manner. Sure. Of course, a member of the government might take an idea, be it generated by the president or the official or the committee, and turn it into a huge success, and the honors would be claimed or shared where the public perception feels. But ultimately, the president is responsible and therefore takes the credit or the blame for whatever happens in his or her government. Not everybody agrees with this. There's some saying that the president is only trying to whitewash the vice president.
The president is trying to interpret the Constitution.
But is that what happens in reality?
Without more.
In reality, is that what it is?
In reality, that is what it is. But that is pointing to the faults of the Constitution. How could we all sacrifice our whole social mandate into one person and say that you are responsible for everything and therefore nothing goes on? But we know basic management. Management is through people and with people.
Right.
So you cannot do everything all by yourself.
Okay.
So you have opportunity to appoint people to support you in managing. And you need to be careful the people you appoint to do the management for you. on your behalf.
That is true, but the same president then credits the vice president
Yes.
for
Wait.
the digitalization drive,
So
and
in
the
the
takes
regime,
credit for it.
there are people that will do so well.
Okay.
There are people who will not do well.
Okay.
So it is your duty as the head of the regime to also do the evaluation and see this person is not doing as much as expected.
Okay.
So let me change gear.
Okay.
And this person is doing so well, probably let me elevate him.
Okay.
But if you don't do that, and the appointment is not only an exercise to suit your whims. You may not like somebody, but he may be very productive in your administration.
Right.
You still have to engage him. And in some of the, Dr. Joe said something.
Mr. Joe Jackson.
Lame something.
Lame duck.
But he forgot to say lame audience.
Lame duck audience. Well,
because the lame people
on your side.
The lame people, and the lame people down to are not responding to the lameness.
Okay.
And you try to insulate them. We are the very passive audience that we are not responding to what Joe calls lameness. If there was any checks, okay, so being Kumaona, he is there, he is not fighting for you.
What do you
and
do?
you are also lame, you are also observing quietly.
So we should push
happily.
the president a bit more. Okay.
And that's, be lame and they be there. Me, I'm also lame, I'm also not pushing.
I get it.
Indeed, in terms of appointments, it's important for us to check the background of the person, the experiences of the person.
Right.
It is not just take Mr. Pierre out and put Joe in.
Okay.
No. You look at people's competencies into positions and the expectations of such officers before you put them there.
Yeah.
And I'm very disappointed sometimes when you look at people being appointed to positions, you see from afar that they cannot perform. And sometimes I think that pointing this person to this position, you yourself, the appointing authority, you know that he cannot perform, but you put him there. So the lameness must also transcend onto those of us who will also be lame and put our hands on our feet and say, he has a constitutional mandate, let him exercise it, without due caution and without our interference.
Yeah.
So the lameness I just call Joe to push further, and let's call all ourselves also being lame.
We're collectively to blame.
We are collectively to blame.
Okay.
So, again, the parliamentary independence, as Ricketts brought out, since I joined Parliament, one of my ambitions is to ensure that Parliament becomes independent and be Parliament rather than the post office. You understand? Anything that comes to Parliament, there are people who want to make sure that it passes through safely.
It's rubber stamp.
That is not the work of Parliament. To just collect something from you and just dump it.
It's like a conveyor belt.
No, it cannot be post office. Let us interrogate the things that come to us. Where necessary, say, my friend, take it back. This one cannot pass.
But if you interrogate it, how do you become a deputy minister,
Oh, so are we all going to be ministers and deputy ministers?
Yeah, but that's
most of you go to
most of you go to Parliament because of that anyway.
No. Is that going to be a check on our work? We are given a responsibility schedule. Then you go there and say there is a possibility of becoming a minister, and therefore let me drop this responsibility schedule and just control to this expectation so that I become minister.
Yes.
Please, then Parliament will not be a great place for you.
Okay.
I want to see a Parliament that says to a president, say that, look, we cannot. Something happened last year, and I very much agree to what that was happening. There was a bill that came and had to be returned. Okay. And, I was happy I was part of the thing that said, no, we can't have this thing. Because we couldn't even identify the source, the point of operation. Okay. So the Parliament must vet anything that comes there and see, because if a bill passes, and like Joe was saying, it has caused us financial difficulties. Are we not part of the process? Because we also had opportunity to say that based on our knowledge as a group in Parliament, say that, look, item A, item B, item C cannot be justified, and therefore we will reject. But if we allow it to pass also, how do we turn around and go and blame the one person who sent the thing through us? Let us also be seen to be doing the auditing work that is required of us. And lastly, the agric sector.
Yes, planting for food.
Personally, I think agric must move with trade and industry and local government. There must be this tripartite. If we want
should have
to
one
agree-
ministry
yes.
in charge
No,
of that.
not one ministry.
Okay.
But they must be collaborating.
Synergy.
Because, yes, synergy. Agric cannot work alone. Trade cannot work alone without agric. Being an agrarian economy.
Yeah.
And local government, the way we have structured our governance system, that's the base of our development. So the three ministries must be seen to have a program working together and delivering the results so that the agric will know what to produce for industry to process and trade there to also assess the market.
I get it.
So that the distribution of the goods and services and the collation of the produce will be managed by local government.
Great.
We must have a system that works like that.
Okay.
Nobody, no one person, no one ministry can deliver Ghana from economic
I agree
mess.
with you.
We have to be working together in collaboration with each other.
I agree.
Let us target the bigger picture rather than being, self-centered and
Or working in silos.
Working in silos.
I get it.
It is not good. But before I end, the president talks about the dynamic minister for agriculture.
Yes.
I agree with him.
Brandy
Because
Champon.
if you look at the indices from the time of his appointment to now, even in December, this December, one thing I realized that food prices rather went down instead of going up, as has been traditional.
Yeah.
So I want to commend him for what he has done so far. But even that, I would say that probably the change came too late.
Yeah.
The change probably must have come too late. If he had come earlier, probably would have gotten better results than now. But I say better late than never.
Than never.
So I encourage him to continue his good works, and probably that will bring a place for him in future.
All right.
So security is also one of the merit indicators.
Yeah.
So if security has been considered,
That's fine.
this is
Okay.
also one of the merit.
All right, Mr. Joe Jack saying, I don't know how you're going to do this. Just brief thoughts, just 2 minutes, because we need to move to a second
Yes,
topic.
I'll just make a short comment about agric,
Right.
and then make a little appeal.
Yes. We've moved on. We've moved on. Yes.
You know, the challenge I have with agric is that one of the things that hit us hard last year was food prices.
True.
That was the ultimate judgment on whether planting for food
inflation was crazily high.
Was crazy high.
Yeah.
If there was any judgment on the policies of the agric ministry and its effect, just look at 2023.
Yeah.
Look at the role food inflation played in punishing all of us.
True.
And when you look at that, you will see whether that, for me, is the ultimate judgment as to whether planting for food and jobs failed or was right.
Okay.
Admittedly, it's now trending in the right direction.
Okay.
So maybe the new minister is having an
He's
effect,
got his job cut out.
But the jury is still out.
Okay.
Because if you look at the last 2 months, that trend downwards has plateaued.
Okay.
So be very cautious.
A word of caution to him.
But on the way forward, right? On the way forward, we need this president to keep fighting for us. Okay. If he says he wants to fight for us, fight for us.
Okay.
If he says do it.
Okay.
I'll end here.
I'm not going to move to our second. Yes.
We didn't have opportunity to discuss the judiciary.
But that's another topic. Yeah, just like we will have time to talk about security. And okay, so that's fine. So
I will add to your what do you
call it?
The indicator.
Yes.
Which is
the prices of food.
The prices of food. Which
you keep moving away from your mic, so our listeners can hear.
Which is food inflation.
Yes.
I will also add agriculture's contribution to GDP.
To GDP.
When you look at it, you realize that
it's dropping.
Dropping.
And it's hard.
So
forgive me, Honorable and your peer could be. How can you say the 1D, 1F has worked, when the contribution of industry in the last 4 years
It's
has
infinite.
been consistently negative.
Yeah.
And in the 1 year that it wasn't even negative,
I get
it
it.
grew by 0.9%.
All right, so let's do this. Let's move to our second topic.
I
Sorry,
did not
I
have
beg
the
you.
opportunity to discuss it. I probably would have raised issues there.
Okay, that's fine.
But again,
Wait.
it depends on who is in the driving seat.
I get it. All right, so so now when Andy Akubi talks about who is in the driving seat, remember he was one of the 89 MPs who wanted the finance minister out. Maybe one of these days I'll ask him, maybe on the show, ask him whether he's okay. Are you happy now? The finance minister is out. Are you happy now? Yeah. Oh, no, but he's not the minister. He's not the finance minister.
He's still around.
All right. So we'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be dealing with the running mate issue with the NDC.
His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, former president, have written to us detailing his choice of running mate. And that name stands very enclosed until the 7th scheduled meeting, which will comprise of a meeting with Council of Elders, to be followed by a National Executive Committee meeting, where the party will be required to make inputs into the choice of the flag bearer, so that the running mate on whose name will be settled become an asset, property of the party to complement the flag bearer for the 2024 election. But as we speak, no name have been settled on yet. All other publications you see are projections by individuals and also part of political strategy of people who intend to be running mates. Of course, we don't condemn those things. We don't also endorse it. But I can put it on record that His Excellency have not put out any name yet. The name is still at a consultative stage. And when the meeting happened on the 7th, we outdoor that name. We have a number of names. And those names will go through the process. But in the midst of those names has a choice of the flag bearer. We go through the process of consultation.
All right, so you just heard Mustafa Bande, who is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, interacting with my colleague Annie Ampofu on this same subject matter of who partners the former president and the flag bearer of the NDC into the 2024 elections. And we are reliably informed from our sources that the former president is actually prefers to go with Professor Jane Nano Pokwajimai. Let me say that for this particular discussion, there are two more people who have joined us. Shamima Muslim is a founder of Alliance for Media in Media Africa, Alliance for Women in Media Africa. She's joined us. Shamima, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Please unmute, Shamima.
Good morning, Mo.
Yes, good
and
morning.
Good morning to you as well.
Yes, Andy Akubi says, hello, you haven't been a good friend, and so please look for him.
Yes.
He says you should please look for him.
You are just right. Don't treat me like that.
He was one of the old student leaders that we looked up to when we joined student leadership.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So you guys go way back.
Andy on campus
I see.
when he was visiting here.
Oh, I see. There's some history there.
Except that she has decided to
abandon you.
Abandon me.
Oh no, there's some. We'll do some reconciliation anyway. Let me also say that Musa Dankwa is the chief executive officer of Global Info Analytics. As I did indicate, he's done some work. In fact, he did some work for the 2020 when she was chosen, when she was settled on for the 2020 elections, and it was a survey that he did, and that survey will give us an insight into what is likely to happen. If Professor Jane indeed is endorsed by the Council of Elders and the National Executive Council. Anyway, good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure having you, boss. Good to see you. All right, then. So what I'm going to do is, Shamim, I know you would want to have a bite, just a brief bite on the state of the nation, especially the part about where the president talks about, look, I take ultimate responsibility. Don't blame anybody. People are free to advise, but ultimately the buck stops at my end. Would you want to have just 2, 3 minutes bite on that, and then I can come to Musa Dankwa.
You know what? Well, Mo, when I heard that statement, then it just crystallized for me, conversations that were already happening with regards to, strategy moving forward, because it is ultimately also in the best interest of the president and his appointees that, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia wins the 2028 election. So this is the man who has enjoyed 7 years and is going to enjoy his last year as president. Who cares what you slap on him, whether you like it or not? He has had his 2 terms as a president, and he has done what he wants to do, sometimes in regards to what concerns are raised. So I think that it just crystallized for me that there are deep conversations, and those conversations are not only fueled by sentiment, but there might be some science to it with regards to maybe some consultants are telling them that, to push this campaign forward, you need to make some of these statements and, reaffirm Bawumia's position that he could just advise. His role as the chair of the economic management team was an advisory one, and all he could do was advise. So perhaps this is a meeting that might have happened that all of them were told that truly to protect you beyond your tenure and to ensure that this breaking the 8 becomes somewhat viable, some of these statements must be made so that you can kind of protect Bawumia from some of the ills of the administration. But this is really after you have enjoyed the administration. So your administration. So it really crystallized for me that this is really going to be the strategy moving forward. For the gains, Dr. Bawumia would be able to appropriate some of them, but where there are ills, I'm sure from what the president has said, he would be forgiven if he tries to remove himself from them.
Wonderful, I get that. And so I get it. Now you're saying is suggesting that this appears to be a negotiated position. I get that. Let me start with you, Mr. Musa Dankwa. Now, why did you decide, first of all, to engage in this exercise in 2020? And why do you think it is important for us going forward to look at this data and to give us some insights into what the Professor Jane ticket would look like going into 2024? So give us some context why you decided to do this.
Thank you very much, Moro. I think every pollster must be relevant.
Okay.
And you must seek to answer some relevant questions, even when people think that it's not relevant.
Right.
At the time we asked the question, we didn't know we would be in this situation.
Right.
And even though that data was published in 2020 December, people perhaps didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So what we have done now is to go back to history and say, look, this was what was said when she was first nominated.
True.
Was that decision right? And today that she is being, reaffirmed again, according to sources, is it the right
highly considered?
Highly considered.
Yeah.
Is it the best decision that John Mahama has made? In the context of the polls and what will actually happen in the central region and indeed nationally post the 2020 elections.
Yeah.
That's why we went back in there to...
I get it. And this is what you put up on your Facebook wall. You say the Prof scorecard in the central region, according to data, when Prof was nominated in 2020, the poll suggested that 27% of voters were definitely going to vote for NDC because of her selection. 29% said maybe, and then it says they may be influenced, while 44% said not at all. They will not be influenced, representing majority. I mean, she didn't seem to be that popular in 2020 based on this data.
No,
she didn't seem to have that drive or that excitement.
If you add the positives,
yes,
you can add definite and maybe as positive.
Right.
In that case, it gives you majority.
I get that. That's a valid argument.
And then you have to also look at the regional spread of these numbers. Okay. It's quite important. Sometimes we believe that, from that region alone, you will win. No, you must see the impact of that nomination on other regions.
Across the regions.
Across the regions. Because somebody may not win in the region, but they may bring you enough votes from other regions that will compensate for the entire region that you think you didn't get anything from there.
True.
And the data here shows quite remarkable results. And if you look at areas that she wasn't doing well, it's not surprising. She wasn't popular among in the MPP strongholds.
Which is understandable.
Understandable. But everywhere else, she was very popular. But in particular in Central region, that was the second region with the least people who said they will not be influenced at all by her nomination. If you pick Savannah, about 13% said they wouldn't be influenced at all by her nomination.
Yeah.
Followed by Central region, 16%. These were the lowest regions with the lowest people who said that they would not be influenced at all. So for her, almost over, say, 70% saw that as positive.
Right.
Before the elections.
True.
And you could see the effect she had on the election. If you look at the results of the 2020 polls, what has happened over the time. When you look at it critically, you realize that the only time NDC has made gains besides 2020 was between 2028 and 2012, where their share of vote went up by 1.5% in 2012.
Right.
When Mr. Atta, I think, became the vice president.
The vice president.
And then thereafter, NDC collapsed in Central region by almost 8.7%. In 2020, their share of vote did not decline. It actually increased by 2.5%.
Yeah.
Which means that she didn't become a liability on the party in the region.
Okay.
From the numbers. And then when you look at the number of seats the NDC won in Central region, they had
or regained.
In fact, they had four seats in 2016.
True. Yeah,
in 2020, it's gone to about 13.
13, yes.
Additional 9.
Yes.
Now, we are running a model to see whether the number of...
it correlates with her candidature.
You know, but
that's
at the
important.
moment, we don't have any scientific evidence right now, but you could see that...
Anecdotally,
the evidence is there.
Yes,
that
she played a key role.
It was not a liability. So on that basis, I wasn't surprised when I heard that she was going to be renominated.
Yeah.
Because, look, she was nominated for a number of reasons in 2020.
Yeah.
One was the free education issue. Was still an issue that MPP was still pushing. And they wanted somebody who could speak to education because her background was education. So she was nominated. Free education has not gone away.
True.
The issue may have changed slightly, and now they look for somebody who can offer options or solutions to address the challenges that people are concerned about.
True.
At the moment, education is number 3 issue on minds of voters.
What's number 1?
Number 1 is jobs.
And economy.
Economy number 2.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And then the second reason that she was chosen was for probably gender issue. If you're looking for any party that can produce a running mate who is a female or potential female president, it has to be NDC and MPP.
Right.
We've had 3 candidates in the past, Akufo-Addo, Ajiman Kunedu, and the PDP lady. But there were no viable candidates to win this race.
At least based on their ticket.
General ticket. Now, so if you want female to be highly represented in any place in this country, it has to come from NDC and MPP.
Right.
And I think being on the NDC ticket gives her the most realistic chance of becoming the first female vice president. And gender issues are very important. And some of Muslims have put about gender.
Yeah.
And I think women sometimes, when they have somebody who can speak their language, they gravitate towards that. And the last but not the least is the middle class.
Okay.
People thought that if she's the vice president, the middle class that NDC normally struggles to attract may change.
Okay.
And those issues are still relevant. They haven't changed.
I get it. Wow. Wow. Musa, I mean, you're just simply awesome. Let me go to Sham. Sham, we have just 7 minutes. I don't know how you're going to do this, but you know, that's well, we have 8 minutes, but that 8 minutes would have to share between you and the 2 guests. They say they just need 1 minute each, so you can have like 5-6 minutes. But Sham, you are one of those who's always been advocating that Ghana needs a female, the female to be at the top. You've always been a gender advocate, and so we felt that a discussion like this is something that you'd be very much interested in having. Now, let's assume, because you like to deal with hard facts and evidence, but let's even proceed on the assumption that she gets it. She's gotten the nod. Do you think it would be a good choice, and why? And how do you assuage the fears of those who say if the NDC goes with Professor Jane, crossing 2028 will be a very difficult task? How do you put these two together? So what's your stake on this?
I'm just so happy. Thank you very much, Moro. I'm very happy with the foundation that Musa has just laid for us, because in the public square, the conversation is usually around sentiments on whether or not she brought in the votes, did she bring in the women's votes, and a little of the science finds its way into the public conversation around the consideration of women, and specifically Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman as, running mate. We have just heard the science, we have just heard the data that she was not, she was actually a positive addition to the tickets of former President John Dramani Mahama. As a gender activist over the years in various women's platforms, I have always said that because there are no consequences and rewards surrounding our advocacy for amplifying women's representation in governance, the leaders of the country, especially the political leaders of the country, do whatever they want. And that is why we are actually seeing a pushback against women's rights and representation. And we're also seeing a pushback in the numbers of women who are winning elections. The last district level elections was just one clear example. We had near parity women and men going into the polls, but we had very few women making it, successfully. What this tells us is that there's a problem. The problem is that there is a lack of commitment on the side of our leaders who have very wide-ranging appointive powers, that if they truly were minded to bridge the gap, they will bridge the gap. In the last State of the Nation address, President Nana Akufo-Addo mentioned that he will be pushing the affirmative action bill through. Up till date, the affirmative action has not been passed. What it also tells us, and yet that same president under his tenure during his recent reshuffles removed a lot of women MMDCEs and did not replace them with women. That same president under his leadership, his political party has seen the removal of at least 5 women ministers and deputy ministers who did not win their primaries, who were subsequently removed from his government. We have seen very low representation of women. This president had promised at least 30% of women appointments across board in his government. That has not been met. We cannot be told that we do not have the women, because now we know that we have the women, qualified women for that matter. So one is that the lack of increasing commitment on the side of words, promises, commitment at the highest level. And in the last time when Prof's name came up, I was one of the people who came out publicly to endorse that action, because I said, as activists, unless we are being hypocritical, we must be seen to be speaking up and rewarding specific actions that take our advocacy forward. Because like Musa said, to have the MPP or the NDC have a woman running mate already increases the possibility or the chance of a woman rising up to that 67 years, rising up to the position of vice president. We will walk before we run. I'm not even thinking about presidency. I'm just saying that it is time to break that glass ceiling and make it possible for our young girls to see that they can dream to become the vice president of Ghana, because they are brilliant, they are competent, and they can also lead. So number 2 continues to be the issue of, like I say, no consequence, no reward. We women have to make up our mind what we want. Okay. We are in the majority in terms of population and numbers. Politics is about numbers, okay? So if there are women on the various tickets, parliamentary, presidential, and women are voting, and yet the women are not leading, we have to come back to ask why. I have asked this question, and one of the things that, one of the answers I got back is that because resources are still largely controlled by men, when these men go into the communities, in many communities of poverty, when a man goes to give a woman 20 Ghana cedis and say that vote for my candidate, at that point, the sentiments around seeing my fellow woman there, it is like in the bottom minimum, especially if my fellow woman cannot give me money or food or cloth, like the men who continue to control the commanding heights of our economy and continue to control capital and therefore influence the decisions of the masses. This is one of the major drawbacks against women's participation and against women themselves voting for women. It is not about the fact that, oh, you women are your own enemies, you don't like voting for yourselves. We need to go beyond that to ask the questions why. It is the level of influence. So for me, I think that if this decision goes through, I would say that former President John Dramani Mahama has made a right decision. Also politically, for the sake of continuity and consolidating the gains that the signs have told us. We know that some time back, President Evans Atta Mills, when he was candidate, did not also win in the Central Region. Central Region and some of the coastal regions have always been swing regions. So even when the mantra Aziwofia Oye was used, at the time, when the time was not right, when the season was not right, even the votes from the Central Region didn't come as we expected. So once she has started the groundwork, I think that this is the time to consolidate the gains amongst her primary constituents. The people of the Central Region, women across the country, even the middle-class women, because when the decision was made, in some circles, Moro, please allow me, in some circles, there were concerns that is it not a tokenistic approach to try to throw the carrots to the women's constituency to get the vote? Former President Dramani Mahama, by this decision, has proven that by this decision, if it holds, would have proven to these concerns that no, there is commitment. And for me, I think this is the right thing to do, because if the former president should choose any of the other names in this very critical election cycle, we don't know the chaos that is going to emanate from. The same people who are saying that, oh, for continuity's sake, choose A or B, are the same people, if their candidate is not chosen, would now be offended and saying that the former president is trying to control who will lead the party after his exit. So I think that if this team closes the page on 2024, in 2028, the president, what he can do, former President John Dramani Mahama, should he win the elections, is to ensure that all these other names that are being mentioned are given critical, visible cabinet positions. So they will justify their inclusion towards 2028. That time, the slate will be wiped clean for everybody to now decide and put their hats in the ring. And when the people decide who their preferred candidate is, then a fair race for everybody.
Okay, so Sham, let's do this. Because the announcement has not been made officially, we'll just take it that these are your preliminary comments. Let's wait. 7th March is
my observations.
Absolutely. Yes.
These are not definite comments. These are my observations.
Absolutely. So
Dr. Nana Jane is the one who is being considered most highly.
Right. So after 7th March, we would have that one. Will bring you into the studio. I will beg you to come to the studio so we can have something more comprehensive. Thank you. Thank you, Sham. Thank you so very much. I don't know, but you are just telling me unfair, surprisingly, just 30 seconds. You're saying you don't believe in this regional thing.
No, I don't believe in the regional thing. I believe in one who will bring the votes to the ticket. The one who, when selected and elected, also will be in a position to perform.
So, for instance, your party is saying it must come from Ashanti by you. You don't agree?
No, I don't agree. I think that we have to consciously balance the north-south divide.
But not necessarily Ashanti.
Somebody from the south will do.
Fine. Central, Western, Bono,
I'm not particularly restricted to Ashanti region, but somebody from the south, Bono, Ashanti, Eastern, Central, Western, Accra, Greater Accra, will do. But the person with the potential to bring to the ticket more votes, the person with the potential to perform after election, and again, in the present circumstances we have ourselves, very hung parliament, we are likely to have something similar. Person who will be able to bring parliament to the executive.
Interesting.
Because if you're having challenges in parliament, your administration will struggle. So that who is connected to parliament, who can bring parliament also to the ticket, is important. These are my parameters.
So, Professor Jane, are you scared?
Professor Jane, I'm extremely happy if he is going to be selected.
Really?
For me, as an NPP, I'll be happy.
Is it a sarcastic comment, or
no? It's not.
You mean it?
It's not. I mean it.
Okay.
Prof. Jane. Sometimes we need to also reward people who are performing in other sectors. In academia, we couldn't fault Professor Jane.
All right.
And for that reason, I'm an academic person.
That's fine.
I always want to go back to the university.
All right.
So
Okay.
if she's appointed, I'll be happy for her.
Okay.
And I'll be happy for the stability that she will bring to the political equation. She's a very calm, level-headed person.
Okay.
And we can deal with her conveniently.
Honorable, any brief thoughts? Just 30 seconds.
But please, let us also learn lessons from this going into our own selection. And Bob, we are happy that I'm sure you have already
Most of
done
them
some
contacted.
survey.
Very important. Yes.
For me.
Atam is up. Sorry, but your microphone. Is off, actually, yes. Just 30 seconds, I beg you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Of course, I just, I'm very interested in the analysis that Musa made. I think it's a very, very informative one. The selection of a running mate is the president's prerogative. So obviously, President Mahama will want to make sure that the person that he wants to go with. Yeah.
The presidential candidates prerogative.
Yes.
We have only one president.
I guess because we're almost there. So basically, is a former president prerogative, who he chooses, obviously in consultation with the Council of Elders and also the party in entirety. You want to work with somebody that is competent, you feel comfortable, and you can achieve results with. I haven't heard any. I've heard a lot of names being thrown around. But I think the name that has been consistent, obviously because she was chosen in 2020, is Professor Nana. We hear that the president has submitted his list, whether it's one person on the list or two, it's gone to the party. There's a process for doing this. 7th March, I believe, we will all know who the president has chosen with the approval of the Council of Elders and the National Executive. So we will wait for that.
So you wish the president?
Yes. And then, of course, I may be biased coming from the Central Region, though Apia doesn't believe in regional stuff. I will be happy if it's Nano Pukwajiman. Obviously, it will strengthen us in the Central Region to be able to work hard, for the party. I also want to see a woman president one day. But it's a process. And I feel that, having her in could be a beginning of a process. If it's not herself, others, women will look at it. And finally, what I want to obviously say finally is that, well, I should say we should wait and see.
Okay, that's fine. Would you be surprised, just 30 seconds, would you be surprised if it's not Prof?
Yes.
Why?
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Thank you. All right.
Just a quick one. I said we chose her in 2020.
Yes.
When she came in, though she's been a minister, but you wouldn't say that she was a political animal then.
Yeah. She was more like
she's had political animal. I mean, I'll use that, figure. So obviously, having been there for 4 years and more or less learned the terrain of politics and all that, I think, it's really doesn't make sense in my mind to replace her. But
NDC has never mentioned a running mate, so that's going to be a first.
Yes.
You've never done that. Anyway, so thank you very much. I will say,
Do you think that my submission was being sarcastic?
Because you did say
maybe as MPP, you're happy that she's coming back so we can beat John again. That's what
makes it sarcastic. So you said you being MPP.
Yes, exactly. That's what
And I gave a scenario that she will bring some stability.
That was after I asked. Anyway, thank you so very much. So Apia Akubi is the Member of Parliament for the Asante Achim North constituency. Well, thank you very much. This is his first time on the show. His promise is going to be making more appearances on the show. Yes, upon invitation. No, he doesn't need an invitation. He will come. Anyway, and then also the Honourable George Ricketts Kukuhagan is also Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South and also with the ranking member, Finance and Economic Committee of Parliament.
I want to say hello to the people of Cape.
Oh, okay, that's fine. They're watching actually. I've got lots of messages from Cape. Anyway, and also Musa Dankwa, Global Info Analytics, a very good friend of the media. I don't know, but his number one media is Metro. That I can tell you. Yes, I can tell you. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching. It's been insightful. It's been great, wonderful discussions. And also, Mr. Joe Jackson, he had to leave us to attend to some other issues. And Shamima Muslim as well. Thank you very much. My name is Aldo Moro. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.